Please welcome, big shout for Napoleon Wright.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it. Yeah, honesty. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about this. It's something that I've definitely think about every day, and I've thought about up to this point in my career now. So I feel it's only right, though, for me to just start off by being very honest and open with you guys. Honesty. My name, CreativeMornings. The ocean is something that I was just talking to my friend Natalia about this. That is a place I go to whenever I feel stressed, whenever I need to have conversations with myself, things like that. This is where I retreat to, so I highly recommend this. Before I go to bed, I watch at least 1 to 2 episodes of Star Trek. That's a fact. I don't know if it's Captain Picard's voice or the hum of the Starship Enterprise. Whatever it does, it puts me to sleep, and that's great. Oop, hold on. Haribo gummy bears. There was a time where I was addicted. I haven't had a bag in about 6 months. I appreciate that. Sometimes at holidays I have one, but you know, I'm going strong, but I'm good now. And I think this is hardcore proof that I was the originator of the Mohawk, straight out of the womb. So there's no debate there. But I just wanted to start off with, I've noticed that there's different levels of honesty throughout your life. And this is basically level 1, when you come out of the womb and you're just here on planet Earth. And everything is yours, however you feel. If you're sad, if you're upset, if you have to go to the bathroom, you just do it. It doesn't matter. Everything is out on the table. This is your most honest. Like being a child, honesty is the purest thing, and it's right there. Speaking of being a child and just talking about how I grew up, my dad was in the military for 28 years, so I'm a military brat, as I'm called. This list is the list of places I've lived, as well as spent time. So, as you can see, I was born in Fort Irwin, California, Kansas, Georgia. Most of my family is from Georgia and Atlanta area. From there, we bounced and went to Germany. And I spent most of my childhood in Germany. That was essentially the first time I got to be somewhere that was for an extended period of time, before I came to the Raleigh-Durham area, actually. So as you can see, growing up, it's kind of tough as a kid because you're moving about every 2.5 years, and as well as like just basically going wherever the military is asking you to go. So it's a little tough as a kid, but as you get older, you learn to appreciate all the travels that you've been through, basically. So as you can see, that brought me all the way down to Woodbridge, Virginia, in high school. And just so I can mention, Fort Ritchie, Maryland, if there's any of my fellow military people watching this, was the best military base I've ever lived at in my life. It was in the mountains, kind of the first place where I made some of my best friends there, so it was a beautiful place. Along this journey of being a military brat, as I was saying, it gets to be a little tough sometimes, but as a kid, I realized this equation is what made sense to me. So art plus Michael Jackson and sports equals happiness. And when I focused on those things, everything seemed to go okay. I could just kind of be in my own world and basically function amongst everything that was going on. So let's start with art. This is basically one of the first things that I created, and I do remember this, like the feeling, and you guys might relate to this too, of putting that paint on your hands and then you put it down on the sheet of paper and then you lift it up and you look at it and you're like, oh, that's me. And you're kind of looking at your hands and you're looking at the paper and then it kind of clicks, like what just happened. And so this is something, you know, thanks to my mom for never throwing away anything that I ever made. But this is something that I've always kept because, you know, my busy hands, I mean, that's you know, relates to today, all the way to today. But this is kind of the very beginning of when I realized, like, I kind of like this thing. So I started to basically just create as much as possible. I realized that these blank sheets of paper could be whatever I wanted them to be. So I would just sit in my room and just sketch. And, once again, like I was saying, growing up the way that I did, when you move to an area, you don't really start making friends until like 6 months in, maybe a little bit later, because you're the new kid. And then you start to like get more involved in different things. And then, by the time that you start to really get locked in, and this was before like Facebook and all that, it's time to go. So a lot of the time that I spent was like alone in my room, quiet, just drawing or playing on my keyboard, just doing different stuff like that. So these are some characters that I just kind of came up with that I thought were cool, and made me feel good. Once again, the next part of the equation is Michael Jackson. I related a lot to Michael Jackson. He was a kid who wasn't really in control of his environment. He was very misunderstood. He traveled the world. I wasn't making people faint at 5 years old, but he was someone that I related to just from his life. And ironically, wherever I traveled, he was there. So his music, his dance, like it was global. So I really related to him in a lot of ways. And I have a very personal connection with him for those reasons. These pictures I chose for a reason, because I feel like a lot of times he's misunderstood in the media, and you don't ever get to see him just being him. A lot of the pictures that you see of him are these exaggerated, media-driven photos that are basically what they want you to think. So this is him just hanging out, sitting by the water somewhere, reading a book. And this is him hanging out. I don't know where this is, but he's just doing normal things. And this is just something that at some point in my life, I think I would love to do a documentary on him just from like a fan perspective. But he's somebody that means a lot to me. So just give thanks to Michael Jackson for those reasons. And as a testament to everything I just talked about, this is something that I made basically just sitting in my room thinking about it. Put this little booklet together, and I carry this, or I have this with me to this day. So sports. Sports is awesome because it's instant friends. And it's something that I realized quickly that I just kind of had a knack for. I found some of my best friends playing sports, and it also teaches you a lot about collaboration, teamwork, people, different personalities. I mean, you can see my guy in the front, like he's ready to take this photo. And that's me in the top right over there. But yeah, sports was definitely something that I learned a lot about life, and just working with different kinds of people from all backgrounds. Something that's awesome about the military is that you're interacting with people from all over the world. So there might be people that just came from Guam, or people that were in Korea, or that, just from all over the world, and they are just end up being your friends. I mean, and that's all is that, they're just your friends. So I basically played sports throughout all my childhood. On a military base, it's not like you can just get into trouble doing random things because, you're Colonel so-and-so's son, or, Major so-and-so's daughter. So, it's not like you can just run around and do crazy stuff. But so during summers and everything, whatever the sport was, I played it. So it was art, music, dance, sports. That was basically just what I was doing. So I played all the way up to high school. And when you get to high school, it's kind of like you had to make a decision to choose a sport. And so I stuck with basketball just because it was my favorite sport. And I loved it. So I was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I was pretty good at basketball. I got a jump shot. I'm all right. But this is when you reach honesty level 2. And I call this below the rim, where you have that hard conversation, which is, I'm 6'2". The average height for my position is 6'6" in the NBA. Probably not going in the NBA. Would have loved to play college basketball, but it wasn't looking like it was in the cards. So this was kind of the first time where I was like, I love this, but this is, I'm probably not going to be going to the NBA. So But that was okay because I still had the passion for art, and so it was kind of like, I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna go to college. So I applied to East Carolina University, got in, um, went through my design career there, graduated with a BFA with a concentration in graphic design, and had a great time at ECU. Did a lot of work, just in class and in studio like we all do. But I will say one of the things that I was most proud of was some of the work that I did as part of the art director for the Expressions magazine there. Excuse me, that is the alternative magazine at ECU. And this was kind of also the birth of my social justice spirit, I would say, where I was working with a team of writers from the school, like people that would write these articles just about issues that were going on in the world and in the community. And it was my job to put them together and to a booklet that was accessible for students. So the design of it, was like 6x6, and the whole idea was like I wanted to be able to fit in a pocket. Students are on the move, you know what I mean? So they don't necessarily want to grab a big magazine or whatever, so just something they can grab. So basically how it worked was we'd have meetings, I don't know, every Friday or something like that, or in the middle of the week. And we'd sit at a table. I'd sit there with a bunch of writers, and they would just tell me what the stories were about or what was on their mind. And I would just get a bunch of Word documents, and I basically had the creative freedom to make whatever I wanted to make. Simultaneously, I was, doing schoolwork and things like that, and the requirements that I had for class. But what was awesome about this is, it was mine and it was ours from a creative standpoint and a design standpoint. So really, I could experiment and do whatever I wanted to do. And it was awesome because, it just allowed me to read their articles at the same time I was creating them, and, just come up with different ideas. And so this was work that I was really proud of to do this work, and it's some of my favorite projects from my time at ECU. And Expressions magazine is still going on to this day, so I think it's awesome. I think every college should have this or some type of alternative form of print or whatever it is, and they probably already do, but I think it's great. So once I graduated, I got a paid internship out of college, which was awesome because, you go to school and then right when you graduate, you're like, okay, like what am I gonna do? And I was thankful enough to get a paid internship that I kind of signed on before I graduated. So I basically went right into the working world once I did that. My first job was at Capstrat, where I was hired as a designer. And while I was there, I was asked, like, are you interested in, like, animation and video work? And I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to, get in those worlds and do those things. And so I basically started doing work and learning at the same time. And as I was doing that, I just kind of started to fall in love with different mediums. And so that's kind of how it started, where I went from doing design to using the same principles in design and video and animation, because all these worlds just started to collide. It was like, there needed to be type on screen. There was still color theory that applied to these different worlds, and typography and things like that. So the same kind of elements that I found in design, I started finding in animation and video as well. And then from Capstrat, actually started working at Red Hat, where I started to do those same things. And let me take it back a little bit. At Capstrat, I was asked one time, because they knew I kind of made music a little bit, and they're like, are you interested in making music for this commercial? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And in the Raleigh area, when I came here anyway, I was introduced for the first time where people's hobbies were just making music. Like people that I would meet, I would go to the house and there was like a studio and people were like recording in their closets and stuff. And I was like, this is amazing. And so I was just surrounded by a musical world. And I started collaborating with people in the area, making beats, making music. So that was just something I was doing in my personal life. So when they asked me to make something at my job, I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. So I did it. And they loved it. The client really loved it. And so I just started doing that for commercials. And that's kind of how that started up. So when I left Capstrat and went to Red Hat, I started doing the same things where I was doing animation, video work, and creating custom music for a lot of the videos. Being an open source technology company, anytime that you can create something that's not proprietary is awesome. So I would do that for their videos as well. Once I left Red Hat, I went to Signal Design and was doing the same things there. Creating videos, animation work, music, filming, just doing all those things. And I say that just because, like, in our industry, and some of you can probably relate, like, these worlds cross all the time. And over time, this is just kind of how my skills just started to get honed just through projects and different things. And simultaneously, I was doing things that I love on the side, but, I didn't really have that much time to do those things. And this is kind of where I got to level 3, where I started asking myself the question, who are you? And this was a big question that I hadn't really asked myself before, in such a way that not only dealt with things personally, but also dealt with things professionally. And it was one of those moments where I realized, like, I love what I do, but I'm starting to have these feelings, and I'm starting to have these thoughts of what it seems as if who either I would have to become or what I would have to sacrifice in order to exist in some of these environments in a way that one definition of success would be defined or fulfilled. And I started thinking of, like, well, what's my definition of success? And I was like, well, if I'm doing what I love, if I'm happy, if I'm proud of the decisions that I'm making. And so when I started to think about that, I was like, those things aren't actually tied to being employed by someone. They're more so tied to being doing what I love and following my passions, and those are the things that make me feel all those things. And I was like, yeah, that's how I'm feeling. Like, that's really how I'm feeling. And I was like, yeah, but income. So I was like, yeah, that's a serious thing. But then I was like, I know, that is a fact. But I was like, this is what I know to be true about myself. So what I realized is, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna make this leap of faith on how I'm feeling about things, I do have to listen to that side that income is definitely part of the conversation. So what I decided to do was mentally, about 6 months before I decided to make the leap, I started just saving as much money as possible. So I saved up 6 months of bills and rent and like all that, so I just knew I didn't have to think at all about that aspect of things. Like, I just kind of like eliminated that side of my mind, so that once I did make the leap, I could just hit the ground running, emailing everybody humanly possible, saying like, hey, I'm out here, I'm doing this, trying to start my thing. So this is what led to Pan2 Creative, which is my business. And so just to give you kind of background about the design itself, this is when I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this leap, I gotta brand myself. I gotta basically the things I was doing for clients and other companies, I started to have to do for myself, which was very wild, just in the sense of thinking about that from that kind of perspective. So once again, I was telling you about, the world that I come from, or the world, how I see it and how I feel. So the identity itself is an abstracted ocean with a mountain and the sun rising. So this is me basically saying, this is my world. Pan2 Creative is my world, and I want you to come into it and like, this is who I am. Pan2, a couple of things. You can pan in music, and you can pan in video and animation, back and forth. 2, collaboration. Also, NAP2 backwards, Napoleon Wright II. It's all those things. And creative, which is just who I am. It's the thing since I was a kid that made the most sense to me. Like, what I tell people is, like, in class, it was always like, social studies had the right answer. There was the right answer. Math had the right answer. Like all these things were like, if it's not this, then it's wrong. But art, it was always just like, I'd get a project and I could just float. It was kind of like there wasn't really a definite answer. There was kind of directions you could go, and the teacher would kind of pull you back and forth, like, oh yeah, you might explore this more or whatever. But there was never this like this wall of limitations, basically. So creative is just who I am. It's why I feel I'm here on Earth. It's just to create as many things as possible. So this next thing I want to show you is basically once I branded myself, started getting myself out there, I got my first project. That led to another project. Then once I got that out there, people started seeing certain things, and I'd get emails, and word of mouth started to trickle, and I was going. So this next thing I want to show you is just a reel of some of the projects that started to come my way. So that was, thank you. Appreciate that. So this is just kind of a screenshot of some of the clients that I started to do work for, or got projects from. And what was interesting is so I was working with different clients. I started to notice is I'm still participating in these environments, that I was in before, but I seem to be more, I have more freedom now. So it's I have the professional experience that I know of these worlds that I came from, to where I'm able to interact with clients and different people and things like that. But there's this element of freedom that I now have. So I'm able to, as long as I'm disciplined enough to meet deadlines and do what I need to do, that was kind of the bottom line. So I was able to go into these environments that I'm familiar with and still do work and still be professional and do those things, but also work with a variety of clients now, work with a variety of people, while still maintaining that level of professionalism. And so it was working, and it felt pretty good. As these guys. So that's pretty much how I felt. So this is, and so speaking from the freedom perspective, when I wasn't working on client projects, this freed me up to do personal projects. So I started to realize this kind of cool balance of okay, once I finish a deadline and once I finish a project and I knew that things were taken care of as far as, my household, my wife and things like that, I now had this freedom. So I was like, okay, I have time to pursue more of those personal projects that I love to do. So what I'll do every now and then is just give myself projects to explore different styles and techniques that, I might not have gotten like a project yet that has this style, but I would love to do this for like 2 minutes or a show or something like that. It would be awesome. But what it allows me to do is like hone my skills, but at the same time, I'm simultaneously creating things to show clients like, hey, I could do this if you liked it, This is another little loop that she's my bodyguard, so don't mess with her. And it also allows me to explore new programs and different things that I might not be using at the time. But it allows me to just like experiment and try new software. And that's another thing too, is like when you're working somewhere or you're employed somewhere, they're constantly updating your computers, your software, like all this stuff. So you're using like all the new things and you don't have to pay for them. But being out on your own, you still got to stay up on your profession. You still got to stay up on what's going on out in the world and things like that. So in my free time, along with personal projects, I'll also do my own research, see what projects I want to invest in, or programs what I want to invest in, how I can see myself using them, different things like that. So you still have to stay on your toes because you're not in those buildings and in that industry, in that world that everyone is in all the time. You still need to be aware of what's going on if you want to continue to be not only competitive in the professional sense, but also just stay sharp in general. I might have skipped a slide. Hold on. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. Also with personal projects, ooh, I'm wearing the same shirt. This is an album of mine, most recent album that I put out, The Life That I Live. This is a very personal album to me. I put it out the end of, no, I put it out this year, I think, yeah. But yeah, you can get it on Spotify, iTunes, all of that. But yeah, The Life That I Live, this is another thing, personal projects. It gives me time to work on my music. It's something I'm very connected to. It's been an outlet for mine. A lot of the stuff I'm talking about today, you might hear in this album too, but just in a little bit more abstract ways. But it's definitely, music is an expression for me that allows me to think creatively as well. As well as doing music, it leads to a lot of collaborations as well as different shows. So these are some posters that I designed for myself for shows, but also for friends. So this one I did for my friend Boulevards. This middle one was for a show I did in New York recently with my friend DJ Prince. And then this one is for a show coming up actually in November 3rd with my guys Matry out of New York. But this is another thing. It's like, once again, these worlds are continuously crossing. It's like I'm doing what I love to do professionally, but then I'm creating music, and then people are asking me to design posters, and so all these worlds are constantly colliding. Also, I'm part of a b-boy crew, breakdance crew, Raleigh Rockers. These are my brothers. There's some of them. We're all kind of spread out. These are some of the ones that are locally here. My friend John in the red, he's in Colorado now, but we perform, compete locally, nationally. Dance has always been a part of my life. Michael Jackson. It's something that is another outlet for mine. It's one of those things, just like with sports, I don't think. Like, when the music comes on, I'm gone. Like, and I just do whatever the music lets me do. And I got a lot of love for my crew. We've been through a lot of things, and we're doing some things right now, so I'm happy about that. Also, it's allowed me the freedom to be able to travel. Me and my wife went to Japan 2 years ago, and it was unreal. It was an amazing, beautiful place, and it's just awesome. I mean, really, it did feel like home, because when you got there, everyone was welcoming. You could ask people things. I learned how to say thank you and excuse me, but generally that got me around, because people knew that I obviously wasn't from there, but they were totally awesome to helping me out. Like, it was just great. From a technology standpoint, recycling is everywhere. Vending machines of water everywhere. Like it's solar power everywhere. Like it's crazy. So, but yeah, it's awesome. Also, this has allowed me to collaborate more with the city. This is some designs that I did for Hopscotch in 2017. They just asked me to design something for them, and I kind of took it as an opportunity. I mean, I'm sure as creatives, whenever somebody's like, "Can you just make something?" You're like, "Yes, I can," and that's what you want to hear all the time. But so I just started thinking, Hopscotch is about the people, all kinds of people, and how can I make a statement without making a statement? So this is just a bunch of people, but it's also a bunch of people. You know what I mean? If you really look at it, the statement that I'm trying to make with this is that they're all people, and that's what Hopscotch is all about. It's also allowed me to collaborate more, like I was saying, with the city. This is a logo that I recently created for Dorothy Dix Park Wake Day, which is an event celebrating the youth who have volunteered in their communities. So, yeah, the concept behind this was just just wanted to make something that felt fun and cool, and something that was dynamic and that would get kids excited. So, and this is I recently started a collaboration with the Alamo Theaters where I approached them with this idea of this thing called Talking Pictures, where we would bring in artists where we could bring them in to talk to them about their favorite film and watch their favorite film with them. So the first guest was Fonte, NC Zone, and it was actually this Wednesday, and it was awesome because you got to talk to him but also learn about him from a different angle of like why his favorite film was Purple Rain. And he said his parents only took him out of school for 2 films, and it was Purple Rain and The Color Purple. So he actually brought his son there to watch Purple Rain with him for the first time. So it was really awesome to experience that. And once again, I designed these flyers, and so these the worlds are constantly crossing. It's like, I'm doing different things, but then design is always creeping back in. My profession is always creeping back in. And once again, it's like I'm doing this, but then the things that allow me the ability to continue to do things like this are the client projects that I'll do and knock out. And then they essentially are buying me time. That's really how I look at it. It's like once I finish this, it's like, okay, I know I'm good for the next 4 or 5 months, so I don't have to think about that, and I can just go on this side and pursue creative projects, which then amplify everything, Next up is Collider Creative, which is based in Durham. Woo! I'm really excited about Collider, something that I'm passionate about, as well as the people there. It's a collective of folks who have acknowledged that our industry is predominantly male-dominated, predominantly white. And while Collider is for everyone, no matter where you come from, any kind of background, we're trying to create a place that feels authentic to the creative community of people of all types, all different backgrounds. Doesn't matter. So you can feel like it's a place that you can come and just either hang out, create, collaborate with people, no matter what your background is. And I'm really excited about it. It's based in Durham. Look us up, Instagram, Facebook, all that. Check us out. Because Us. So I created Because Us kind of the same time around Pan 2 Creative. So while we do client work, we do our jobs, we do what we got to do, we also live in the world that we live in, which, in my opinion, are very wild times. And while we have to do things to make sure our bills are taken care of, the household is taken care of, we're also living in a world that a lot of us have our own feelings and own thoughts and opinions about. So I created Because Us as a place to be where I can create things that I feel passionate about, that relate to how I'm feeling about the world that I'm living in. And a lot of times I feel stuck. I might not be able to create change, whether it's on the political spectrum or the environment or whatever it is, but I can create, which is something that I know I've always been able to do. So speaking of climate change, for instance, I know it's real, and I get frustrated when I hear things about that it isn't. So I tried to create these posters, or I created these posters to basically get that feeling out, where it's like, live it, climate change is real. Breathe it, climate change is real. Feel it, climate change is real. So the idea is that like it's all around you. No matter how you feel about it, you can't deny that it's cold or it's hot when it shouldn't be, or whatever the case may be. So this is kind of a concept that I came up with these. My dream for these would just be able to make them like huge and just have them like blowing in the wind somewhere, or slap them on the side of a building. But once again, these projects like are examples. I mean, they're things that I create for myself, but they're also examples that I can potentially show to, it's like, if I wanted to try to reach out to an organization that was doing things with climate change, like, hey, I made these things, would love to make something along the lines for you. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean. It's like I'm doing these things for myself, but inadvertently they end up being just work that's part of my portfolio at the same time. This is a logo that I created for Raleigh Organizing Against Racism. I was really excited to create this for them and proud to create this for them because I feel like I wanted to create something that you hadn't seen, that you couldn't really define, and was abstract enough that it was welcoming for everybody. I think we've all been saturated with what, when it comes from a graphic standpoint, like what social justice might look like, and you'll see a logo or you see something and you're like, yeah, that probably deals with something social justice related or whatever. But I wanted to make something that you didn't really know what it was, but it was bold and it was graphic and it kind of looked cool, and it said roar, and you're like, what is that? You know what I mean? So I guess if I had to talk a little bit about the concept behind it, roar is a powerful word. Since a little kid, you know what that means. As an adult, you know what it means. It's powerful, it's loud, it's strong. And racism is abstract. You don't know. It comes from all different kinds of angles. You don't necessarily know what it's going to look like, but you know it when you feel it. But you can't really define it. But what you do know is this: when you do organize together with each other, you see yourself in each other. You might look different, but you're the same. So that's kind of where this design came from. Speaking from that perspective, it's abstract. The circles and the square are the same but different. In the word war, it's like I wanted that to be huge, like so you could see this from almost a mile away. You know what I mean? And it stands in the face of racism, big and bold and loud. This next video is a video I created with my friend Natalia, actually. If you're familiar with DACA, it's the Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals, where the children of undocumented immigrants have a chance to get a work permit in the United States. And it's a great program, and it's at risk right now with our current administration. And I have kids that I'm very close to that I've known since they were very young, who are now teens doing big things in the social justice movement, that they're like family to me, that I know are affected by this. So there's a speech that one of the students did, or one of the kids did, that I heard it and I was like, man, this is awesome. And I was like, would you be okay with me making a video about this? And he was like, yeah. I was like, well, would you mind being in it? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So I called up my friend and I was like, hey, are you interested in helping with this? And she was like, yeah. So we got together with him, and we made this video and featuring his speech. So you can check it out.
Hello everyone, we all know why we're here. Now I could stand up here and supply you all with all the numbers and the projected statistics as to why the removal of DACA is a devastating and unproductive mistake, but I'm not going to do that. As a human being with rights, I shouldn't have to explain why I deserve to have my humanity recognized, why I'm worth all the trouble, and why I should be allowed to be a productive member of society with the right to work and own a driver's license. Yeah. This whole political debate is absolutely ridiculous, and the concept of illegality is not real because we were not born illegal. This is all just a complex facade to further criminalize our people and exploit us for our cheap labor and unmerited contributions to this country. And all we want to do is go to school and drive and work Why is that so hard to swallow? I stand firmly with the belief that with or without DACA, we will continue to fight. And I know that in the end, justice will be on our side. Don't be discouraged because we are worth so much more than this. And I'm gonna go off script and just say, we didn't have DACA before. A lot of our people don't have DACA now or never had it. So we're not gonna let this stop us because we're gonna continue to fight. Because they are affecting our community and we will not stand for it.
So that was, thank you. Appreciate that. So yeah, I wanted to make that so it existed just in the world, put it online if you want to use it, you know, for any social justice movement, anybody that was with DACA, wherever you may be in the world. It was something that existed as a tool for those reasons. This next video is actually, I think they're going to put it out today. But so it's voting time. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it's voting time. Just saying. The hurricanes that recently came through affected a lot of people. And I was contacted to create something to help people get out and vote and just to understand that it was important to do so. And this is a series of videos that you'll start to see coming out, I want to say online. You might hear like radio ads of it too, but you might start to see them like just in the ether, and Facebook and stuff like that to help promote what's going on.
It is true we cannot stop natural disasters, but today and forevermore we can take a stand against man-made disasters.
We ask that you understand that you must vote in your county.
What do we want?
Justice recovery!
We stand as a people for righteousness.
It is time to stand with your neighbors today and every day. We demand change.
So these promos will start to kind of like be sprinkled throughout voting season. And this is something I'm real proud of because once again, the whole freedom aspect, it's like I'm able to do the work that I need to do to make sure everything is taken care of, income. And then once I have that, it allows me to be free, which is the creative aspect of it all. And it allows me to do things like this, which all still weave into my profession and everything that I do. So both of the worlds are kind of like rising at the same time. So level 4 is the unknown. And I don't know what's gonna happen next, but that's okay. And that's kind of what I wanted to share with you guys when it comes about honesty, is you saw the levels, you see throughout time how the more you are honest to yourself, or honest with yourself, which is one of the hardest things to do, it takes you to these new places that you didn't really know existed. And each time you prove to yourself that like, oh, I didn't know that was possible, or I didn't know that was on the other side of this. And then once you get to that place, you're like, oh, but I'm still okay. You know what I mean? So I don't know what's gonna happen next. I don't know what's gonna happen today. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, but I know that it's gonna be okay because as long as I continue to be honest with myself. And so basically, this guy is happy. I feel him inside of me every day, and that's who I am. And as long as I'm making him feel like that, then we're good. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And that's my time.
I'll take a question or two from the audience. Questions from Napoleon? Awesome. Go ahead.
You mentioned that like we're our most honest, when we are our children. I think of my little cousin telling me that I'm no fun because all I do is work anymore. It's honest. So do we become
Yeah, I don't think you become dishonest. I think that, you know, because as you get older, there's a lot of variables to the level of honesty that you're going to have with yourself and with others. And I don't think you become dishonest on purpose. I think that there's just things that are hard to admit to yourself. And you kind of have to kind of balance and weigh certain things as far as like, okay, you know, this is how I honestly feel, but I have to do this because, you know, they need that ballerina suit for class, so I gotta do this thing to get the suit or whatever, you know what I mean? But like, I just think, like I was saying, there's different levels of honesty as you evolve throughout life, and I don't think it's you being dishonest, like with a consciously being dishonest. I just think that there's different ways that you have to be honest with yourself throughout time, and I think just the more that you're really honest with yourself, you'll find new solutions to things. I think it's when you're not honest with yourself is when you don't find solutions to things. And I think it always opens these new doors. You know, they say like the truth will set you free, and you know, it's kind of like a saying that's kind of been thrown around in different kinds of ways, but when I look at it, it's kind of like what it means to me is kind of like when you tell the truth, there's nothing left. So because there's nothing left, you see what's actually there, and then that lets you think more clearly in a way that you might have not have thought if you were lying to yourself or lying to other people. And I've always thought that, for instance, when you lie to yourself and other people, it creates, I like to put it as alternative universes that you're constantly having to maintain that aren't real. And so you're constantly making up stuff, and then it gets chaotic and chaotic and chaotic because it's not real, and that applies to yourself too. So I think if you're just as honest as you can be, you know what I mean, it leads to new solutions with things that will help you not be as dishonest, I guess you could say. Yeah, what's up? I didn't like how Pusha T approached what he did, or said what he said. But you know, I can't choose, man. It's just, I don't know those guys personally. I can't speak on there. But hip hop will be what hip hop is, I guess.
So just really quickly, want to thank all of the partners that help us put this event on, especially thank you Motorco for giving us this incredible space to use and handling all the AV. And last, want to give a really big shout out and thank you for Napoleon for telling his story. Beautiful, inspirational, full of truth, and thank you so much for calling the Triangle home. Napoleon Wright. Have a great Friday.